Emily sat on the dusty wooden floor of her grandmother's old attic. The afternoon sunlight came through a small window, making dust particles dance in the air like tiny stars. She looked at the strange door built right into the wall. It was different from any door she had ever seen before. The door was made of dark wood and covered with beautiful carvings. There were flowers, leaves, and vines carved deep into the wood by someone with very skilled hands, but many layers of thick white paint covered these lovely designs. The paint was old and cracked in some places. It looked like someone had painted over this door many times over many years. Emily ran her fingers over the rough surface. She could feel the shapes of the flowers underneath all that paint. The door had no handle that she could see. It seemed like it had been sealed shut on purpose. She wondered what could be behind such a mysterious door. Gran, what's behind this door up here? Emily called out when she came downstairs for afternoon tea. Her grandmother Margaret was sitting in her favorite armchair by the window. She was knitting a blue scarf with her old, gentle hands. When Emily asked about the door, Margaret stopped knitting and looked up. Her kind eyes suddenly filled with worry or love. That old door has been sealed shut for 50 years or more. My own mother told me never to open it. Some things in this world are better left alone. Dear one. Margaret's voice was soft but firm. She picked up her knitting needles again. But Emily could see that her hands were shaking just a little bit. It was clear that the door made her grandmother nervous. Emily wanted to ask more questions, but she could see that Gran did not want to talk about it anymore. So Emily just nodded and helped her grandmother serve the tea and biscuits. Emily's Mother Helen had brought her to stay with Gran 3 weeks ago. This happened right after Emily's parents had finished their divorce. Everything in Emily's life felt broken into pieces now. Her father lived in another city, 2 hours away by train. Her mother cried quietly every night when she thought Emily was sleeping. Emily felt like nobody in the whole world understood the pain in her heart. Living at Gran's house was supposed to help Emily feel better, but most days Emily felt more alone than ever before. She missed her old bedroom, her old school, and her old friends. Most of all, she missed the time when her family was together and happy. That evening, Emily lay in the small guest room that used to belong to her mother when she was young. The room had flowered wallpaper and an old wooden bed that made soft creaking sounds when she moved. Emily stared at the ceiling and listened to the quiet sounds of the old house settling down further. Night, suddenly, she heard something very strange. Soft whispers seemed to be coming from somewhere above her head. The whispers were so quiet that Emily had to hold her breath to hear them. They sounded like voices having a gentle conversation, but she could not make out any words. Emily knew that the attic was directly above her room. She wondered if maybe some birds or mice had gotten into the attic space. But these sounds were different. They sounded more like human voices than animal sounds. Her curiosity was stronger than her fear. Emily got out of bed and put on her slippers. She picked up her phone and turned on the flashlight. Very quietly, she opened her bedroom door and crept up the narrow stairs to the attic. The old wooden stairs made small creaking sounds under her feet. Emily tried to step as lightly as possible so she would not wake up Gran or her mother. When she reached the attic, everything was dark and silent. Emily pointed her phone's light toward the mysterious door. She walked slowly across the creaky floor and pressed her ear against the cold, painted wood. She listened carefully for the whispers she had heard from her room below. The whispers had stopped completely. Everything was perfectly quiet. Emily felt a little disappointed. Maybe she had just imagined the voices after all. But then she saw something that made her heart beat faster with excitement and wonder. A soft, gentle golden light was glowing from underneath the door. The light was warm and welcoming. like the glow of a summer sunset or a cozy fireplace on a winter evening. Emily knelt down and put her face close to the crack under the door. The golden light seemed to pulse gently, almost like it was breathing. It was the most beautiful light she had ever seen. Somehow, looking at this light made her feel less sad and alone. "What are you?" Emily whispered to the door in the softest voice possible. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then, just when Emily thought she might have been talking to herself, she heard something amazing. A voice, gentle and kind, seemed to whisper back to her from behind the door, "Someone who understands." The voice was so soft and caring that it brought tears to Emily's eyes. For the first time in weeks, Emily felt like maybe she was not completely alone in the world after all. The next morning, Emily woke up with the golden light still glowing in her memory. She could not stop thinking about the mysterious doll and the gentle voice that had spoken to her. The warm feeling from last night was still in her heart, like a small flame that would not go out. After breakfast, Emily walked around Gran's back garden. She found the old woodman tools behind the apple trees. The shed smelled like old wood and garden tools. There were spider webs in the corners and dust on everything. Emily looked through the tools hanging on rusty nails until she found what she was looking for. There was an old paint scraper with a wooden handle. The metal blade was a bit rusty, but it looked like it would still work well. Emily picked it up and felt its weight in her hand. This tool might be exactly what she needed to uncover the secrets of the painted door. Emily went back into the house and found her mother Helen sitting at the kitchen table. Helen was staring at her laptop screen with tired eyes. She had been looking for jobs online every morning since they came to stay with Gran. There were papers scattered around the table with job listings and notes written in Helen's neat handwriting. "I'm going to help Gran clean the attic today," Emily told her mother. Helen barely looked up from the computer screen. Her mind seemed far away, thinking about adult problems that Emily did not fully understand. "That's nice, dear. Gran will appreciate the help." Emily felt a little sad that her mother was not really listening to her, but she understood that her mother had many worries right now. Finding a new job was very important for their future. Emily climbed the stairs to the attic with the paint scraper in her hand. The morning sunlight came through the small window and made everything look less mysterious than it had in the darkness, but the painted door still called to her like a puzzle waiting to be solved. She knelt down in front of the door and began to work. The paint was very old and thick. It came off in small flakes when she scraped it carefully. Emily had to be patient and work slowly so she would not damage the beautiful wood underneath. As she worked, something strange and wonderful happened. Emily found herself talking to the door like it was an old friend who had always been there to listen to her problems. "My parents got divorced because they couldn't stop fighting," Emily said as she scraped away a stubborn piece of white paint. The metal blade made small scratching sounds against the wood. "Every night they would argue about money or work or things I didn't understand. Their voices would get louder and angrier until I had to put my pillow over my head." Emily paused in her scraping and touched the carved flowers that were starting to appear under the paint. "Dad moved out 6 months ago. He says the divorce is not my fault. But I keep wondering if maybe I could have done something different. Maybe if I had been a better daughter, they would have found a way to stay together." The more Emily talked, the lighter her heart began to feel. It was like the doll was really listening to every word she said, not just hearing the words, but understanding the feelings behind them. No one had listened to her this way in many months. "Mom cries when she thinks I'm not looking," Emily continued, scraping paint from around a carved leaf. "She tries to be strong for me, but I can see how sad she is. Sometimes I pretend to be asleep so she won't worry about me seeing her tears." Emily worked for hours without stopping. Her hand got tired from holding the scraper, but she did not want to quit. With each piece of paint that fell away, she felt like she was also scraping away some of the sadness in her heart. "I miss my old room and my old school," she told the door. "I miss my friend Sophie who lived next door. I miss the way things used to be when we were all happy together." The carved flowers and leaves were becoming clearer now. They were even more beautiful than Emily had imagined. Someone long ago had spent many hours creating these lovely designs with great care and skill. By afternoon, Emily had scraped away enough paint to create a small crack along the edge of the door. She was tired but excited to see her progress. As she worked on the last stubborn bits of paint round the crack, something amazing happened. A warm breeze began to flow out from under the door. It was gentle and soft, like a spring wind carrying the promise of good things to come. The breeze brought with it the sweet smell of fresh flowers blooming in a garden somewhere far away. But there was something else in that warm air. Emily could hear the distant sound of gentle laughter. It was the kind of laughter that comes from joy and friendship and people who care about each other. Emily pressed her eye close to the crack she had made, trying to see what was behind the door. All she could see was that same beautiful golden light, warm and welcoming. But somehow, even though she could not see anything else, she felt less alone than she had felt in many weeks. The loneliness that had been sitting heavy in her chest like a cold stone began to feel smaller. For the first time since her parents' divorce, Emily felt like maybe everything would be okay somehow. "Thank you for listening," Emily whispered to the door. On the third day, Emily climbed the stairs to the attic with excitement in her heart. She had been thinking about the Mysteria store all through breakfast and could hardly wait to continue her work. The paint scraper felt familiar in her hand. Now, like an old tool she had been using for years, Emily knelt down beside the door and began scraping away more of the old white paint. The crack she had made yesterday was a little bigger now, and more of the beautiful carved flowers were showing through. As she worked, Emily continued talking to the door about her feelings, just like she had done the day before. "I had a bad dream last night," Emily said as she carefully scraped paint from round a carved rose. "I dreamed that Mum and Dad forgot about me completely. When I woke up, I felt scared that maybe the dream could come true." Emily paused in her work to brush away some paint flakes that had fallen on her jeans. As she did this, something wonderful and amazing happened. Through the crack in the door, she heard a voice, but this time it was not the same gentle voice from the first night. This was a different voice entirely. "I know exactly how you feel," said a boy's voice with a clear London accent. The voice sounded like it belonged to someone about Emily's age, maybe a little older. "My name is James. When my parents split up last year, I thought it was my fault too. I kept thinking that if I had been a better son, maybe they would have stayed together." Emily's eyes grew wide with surprise and wonder. She pressed her face closer to the crack and listened carefully. This was definitely a real person talking to her, not her imagination. "I'm Lucy," said another voice, this one belonging to a girl with a gentle, kind way of speaking. "I felt so lonely when my family moved to a new town 6 months ago. I didn't think anyone would ever want to be my friend. I was too scared to talk to the other children at my new school. And I'm Thomas," added a third voice. This boy sounded a bit younger than James, maybe Emily's exact age. "My dad lost his job last year because his company closed down. We had to move to a smaller house. And I was so embarrassed to tell anyone at school that we couldn't afford the things we used to buy. I stopped inviting friends over because I was ashamed of our tiny flat." Emily's heart began to race with excitement and disbelief. She could hardly believe what was happening. Somehow, this mysterious door was connecting her to other young people who understood exactly what she was going through. These were not adults trying to make her feel better with empty words. These were children who had felt the same pain she was feeling right now. "I'm Emily," she said softly, speaking toward the crack in the door. Her voice was shaking a little, because she was so amazed by what was happening. "I've felt so alone since my parents got divorced 3 months ago. Nobody at my old school knew what to say to me. And now I'm living with my grandmother while my mum looks for work." "You're not alone now," Lucy said warmly. Her voice seemed to wrap round Emily like a comfortable blanket on a cold day. "We're all here with you. We understand what it feels like when your whole world changes and you don't know how to make sense of it anymore." "That's exactly right," James agreed. "I used to lie awake at night wondering if there was something wrong with me. I thought maybe I was the only kid in the world whose parents couldn't stay together." From that day forward, Emily made it her daily routine to visit the door and talk with her new friends. Every morning after breakfast, she would climb the stairs to the attic with her paint scraper and spend hours both working on the door and sharing her deepest thoughts and feelings. James told Emily about how he had learned to talk to both his parents separately. He explained that even though they could not live together anymore, they both still loved him very much. He had discovered that he could have good relationships with each parent without feeling like he was betraying the other one. Lucy shared her story about finding the courage to introduce herself to classmates at her new school. She had been terrified that the other children would think she was strange or boring, but when she finally gathered her courage and said hello to a girl sitting alone at lunch, she discovered that the girl was also new to the school and looking for a friend. Thomas explained how his family had actually grown closer during their difficult time after his father lost his job. Instead of being embarrassed about having less money, his parents had taught him that a family's love was much more important than the things they could buy. He learned that his real friends cared about him as a person, not about what toys or clothes he had. Emily started leaving little notes of encouragement by the door before she went to bed each night. She would write messages like, "You are braver than you think," or "Tomorrow will be better than today." When she came back to the attic the next morning, she would always find replies waiting for her. The replies were written in different handwriting styles, showing that each of her friends had written back to her personally. After a full week of careful work, Emily had finally scraped away almost all of the old white paint from the mysterious door. Her fingers were sore from holding the paint scraper for so many hours, and there were small blisters on her palms from all the hard work. But she felt proud of what she had accomplished. The beautiful carved flowers and leaves were now clearly visible in the dark wood. Each design was more lovely than Emily had imagined when they were hidden under all those layers of paint. Someone long ago had spent many months creating these amazing patterns with great skill and love. Emily sat back on her heels and looked at her work. There was just one small patch of stubborn paint left round what looked like an old brass door handle. She had not noticed the handle before because it had been completely covered with paint. Now she could see that it was made of old brass that had turned green with age. Emily's hands shook with excitement and nervousness as she reached for the brass handle. She had been working toward this moment for 7 days. All week long, she had been talking with James, Lucy, Thomas, and her other new friends through the crack in the door. Now she would finally see what was behind this mysterious door that had been sealed for 50 years. She wrapped her fingers round the cold brass handle and turned it slowly. To her surprise, the handle moved easily, as if the door had been waiting patiently all these years for someone to finally open it. Emily heard a soft click as the old lock released. Emily took a deep breath and pulled the door open. What she saw took her breath away completely. She had expected to see a small room, or maybe a closet filled with old boxes and forgotten things instead. She found herself looking into a space that seemed to have no walls or ceiling at all. The space was filled with the most beautiful golden light Emily had ever seen in her life. This light was different from sunlight or electric light. It seemed to glow from within itself, warm and alive and welcoming. The light felt like being wrapped in the world's most comfortable blanket on a cold winter night. It felt like the warmth of her grandmother's hugs and the safety of her mother's arms when she was small. Emily stepped forward into the golden light, and immediately she could sense that she was not alone. Even though she could not see them with her eyes, she could feel the presence of James, Lucy, Thomas, and many other children. There were young people from all over the world who had somehow found doors like this one when they needed connection and understanding. The golden light seemed to pulse gently round Emily, and she could feel the love and friendship of all these other children who understood exactly what she had been going through. She was surrounded by the spirits of young people who had felt lonely, scared, confused, and hurt, just like she had. But they had all found ways to open their hearts to hope and connection. "Do you understand now?" asked a kind voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. The voice was gentle and loving, like the voice of the wisest and kindest teacher Emily had ever imagined. Emily nodded, and tears of joy began streaming down her face. These were not sad tears, but happy tears that came from finally understanding something very important. The door isn't really about the door, is it? It's about opening our hearts to others when we're scared or hurting. Yes, dear one, the voice replied with warmth and pride. You have learned the most important lesson of all. Every person has a door like this inside their heart. Most people are too afraid to open it because they think no one will understand their pain. They think they are the only ones who have ever felt so alone and frightened. Emily listened carefully as the voice continued to explain this wonderful truth. But when we find the courage to share our true feelings with others, we discover something amazing. We learn that we are never really alone in this world. There are always other people who have felt the same way we feel. There are always others who understand our struggles and want to help us feel better. Emily thought about her mother Helen downstairs, sitting at the kitchen table and crying quietly every night when she thought Emily was sleeping. Her mother was trying so hard to be strong, but Emily could see that she was lonely and scared about their future. Emily thought about her father living by himself in a small flat in another city. He probably felt sad and lonely too. Maybe he was wondering if Emily still loved him, or if she blamed him for the divorce. Emily thought about her classmates at the new school she would start next week. Some of them were probably feeling nervous about making new friends, just like she was. Maybe some of them had problems at home that they were too embarrassed or scared to talk about. "I know what I need to do," Emily said softly. The golden light seemed to grow brighter and warmer as she spoke these words, as if it was celebrating her new understanding. Emily understood now that the real magic was not in this mysterious door. The real magic was in finding the courage to open her heart to other people and to let them open their hearts to her. Emily walked down the stairs from the attic with a new feeling in her heart. The golden light and the wise voice had taught her something very important about sharing her feelings with other people. She felt braver and stronger than she had felt in many months. She found her mother Helen sitting alone in the kitchen. Helen was staring sadly at a cup of tea that had gone cold while she sat lost in her own worried thoughts. There were job application papers scattered on the table, and Helen's laptop was open to another job search website. Her mother looked tired and lonely. Emily took a deep breath and walked over to the table. She had never tried to comfort her mother before. Usually, It was her mother who tried to make Emily feel better when she was sad. "Mom," Emily said gently, pulling out a chair and sitting down beside her mother. "I know you're hurting too. I've been so worried about my own feelings that I forgot you might need someone to talk to as well." Helen looked up from her cold tea with surprise in her eyes. She had been trying so hard to be strong for Emily that she had not expected her daughter to notice her own sadness. Emily reached across the table and took her mother's hands in her own. Helen's hands felt cold and tired. "I've learned something very important today, Mom. When we share our pain with people who care about us, it doesn't make the pain go away completely, but it makes us strong enough to carry it without feeling so alone." For the first time in many months, Helen smiled a real smile that reached all the way to her eyes. "When did you become so wise, my love?" she asked, squeezing Emily's hands gently. Emily and her mother spent the whole evening talking honestly about their fears and their hopes for the future. Helen told Emily how scared she was about finding a new job and making enough money to take care of them both. Emily told her mother how worried she had been that the divorce was somehow her fault. "Oh, my darling girl," Helen said, pulling Emily into a warm hug. "The divorce had nothing to do with you. Your father and I just grew apart as people sometimes do, but we both love you more than anything in the world, together." They decided to call Emily's father. Emily felt nervous as the phone rang, but she remembered the courage she had learned from her friends behind the door. When her father answered, all three of them had the most peaceful conversation they had shared since the divorce began. Emily's father told her how much he missed her and how proud he was of the brave, caring person she was becoming. He promised to visit more often and to always be there when she needed him, even though they could not all live in the same house anymore. When Emily started at her new school the following week, she felt nervous like any child would on their first day, but she also remembered the voices of James, Lucy, Thomas, and all her other friends who had spoken to her through the mysterious door. She thought about how much it had helped her to know that other children understood her feelings. As Emily walked through the school hallways, she looked carefully at the other students. She watched for children who seemed lonely or left out, just like she had been feeling for so many months. At lunchtime, Emily saw a quiet girl sitting by herself at a table in the corner of the cafeteria. The girl was eating her sandwich very slowly and looking down at her food instead of looking round at the other students. Emily could see the loneliness in the girl's face. Emily walked over to the girl's table with her lunch tray in her hands. "Hi, I'm Emily," she said with a friendly smile. "I'm new here today. Would you like to sit together?" The girl's face immediately lit up with happiness and relief. "I'm Rebecca," she said. "I'd love that very much. I've been eating lunch alone every day since I started here 2 weeks ago." Emily and Rebecca quickly became good friends. They discovered that they both loved reading books and drawing pictures. Rebecca had moved to this town because her mother got a new job, and she had been feeling just as lonely and scared as Emily had been. Over the next few months, Emily and Rebecca met other students who also seemed to need friends. There was a boy named David whose parents had recently separated. There was a girl named Anna who was being teased by some of the older children. There was a quiet boy named Robert who was very shy and found it hard to talk to new people. Emily remembered everything she had learned from the mysterious door in Grand's attic. She helped start a special friendship group at school for students who needed extra support and understanding. The group met every week during lunchtime, and the children would share their feelings and help each other feel less alone. Emily visited her grandmother every weekend. The door in the attic remained open now, and sometimes Emily would sit beside it and remember the golden light and the wise voice that had taught her so much. The door reminded her that connection and kindness between people could heal even the deepest hurts. Years passed, and Emily grew into a young woman who was known for her kindness and understanding. Whenever she met someone who seemed lost or alone, she would remember the golden light behind the door and the most important truth it had taught her. Every person has a door in their heart. And the bravest thing anyone can do is open that door for others who need friendship and love. The end.